bring a lifetime of experience and values to this fight. And at the top of the list for me, and this isn't political, this is personal and it's a reflection of the thousands of conversations I've had, is the issue of healthcare. If you only gave me one bullet to explain why I'm a Democrat, I would say healthcare. And it's because of my little girl Lizzie and the tens of thousands of Ohioans like her with pre-existing conditions. Lizzie was born needing 4 surgeries before she turned 4 years old. And Anne-Marie and I had to schedule the first one of those without knowing how we would pay for it. And that, let me tell you, is a terrifying place to be in as a family, as a father. And we got lucky. I got a great job with a company in Ohio, and they took incredible care of us. But it shouldn't be a roll of the dice in the richest country on earth to be able to take care of a sick kid. That is not what I fought for as a Navy pilot, but I guarantee you I am going to fight for every family that has a kid or any family member with a pre-existing condition, so they don't have to worry like I did, leaving a 6-month-old on the operating table, not only about whether she was going to make it out, but whether that operation would bankrupt our family. Yes, sir.
Tim,
Ben.
if the Democrats take Congress in the fall, would you see yourself as a force pushed to the hard left or as a force for compromise?
If the Democrats do flip the House, would I be a force for the hard left or a force for compromise? I've been on the record for over a year, and this might land tough with some of you, but let me explain. I've been on the record for over a year, was the very first candidate to say, we need a new generation of leadership. I'm sorry, I'm not going to support Nancy Pelosi to be the Speaker of the House, because we need to pass the torch. And this is not a personal slight in any way, but I apply the lessons I learned as a Navy pilot.
You know what? I'm done. You know why? Because you were the second white male running to try and flip a red district, directly attacking Nancy Pelosi. And you know how to like her, but she's good at her job. And right now, she is the Speaker of the House. You're not even elected yet. We have a fascist running this district right now. And I want to flip the blue, but not just to put a bunch of white males in there. They're going to overthrow the leadership we've got, who's done a hell of a job since 2006, just so that you guys can turn it the fucking Democrat Party into a bunch of Bernie Sanders. No, these white men need to understand that they don't just represent white men who just care about healthcare and health and everything else. That's fine. It's great.
All right.
It's time to do your voice. It's in the house. And your voice ain't it. Fuck you.
You know what?
Oh my God.
It's actually, all right, we can move on, folks, and, yeah, no, I want to take it head on, and it is helpful for me. Wow. I'm not sure everyone heard my opening request to keep things civil, but that's all right, because I know there's a ton of emotion and anger and energy, and I think part of that is the simple fact that we are sending the wrong people, and we have been for way too long. And when I talk about a new generation of leaders, I'm talking about people who will actually show up and look folks in the eye and have these tough conversations. Steve, everything good out there?
Yeah.
All right, good. And when it comes to the leadership on both sides, our politics in DC has grown so stagnant and unable to move the ball on any of these issues. My real hope, and I see it in 2018 in the types of candidates running. I see Cassie back there, I see Lorraine, people who aren't asking anyone's permission to run. They're not getting the baton passed by the big D Democratic Party. They are running out of a sense of patriotism, out of a desire to serve the country. Cassie swore an oath as a Navy intel enlisted intel petty officer to support and defend that Constitution. If we get enough folks in government who approve that they will put the country first, I think we can change the conversation. Yes, sure.
I have a question that's also be political one, but I'm not going to flip anyone off. But this is something I'm really concerned about that I really want to know. So there are a lot of situations where I think Congress should take back the reins from the current president. Sorry for people who might not agree. But, you know, tariff power, I can see Congress being involved in those decisions. The decisions to go to war or to send missiles, I'd like to see Congress take the reins there. The decision to push the nuclear button, I'd like to see Congress have a voice there. All of those things. So I want to know how there are bills on the floor. Like Corker has a bill to take away the tariff power. There are a couple different ones floating around for war power. I want to know how you feel about those. A second two-part question, but I think these all fit together. If in the future we reach a point where the current president might be impeached, and that's a very real possibility, that point may come with or without evidence from the Mueller investigation, depending on how long it takes, and if it gets handicapped. So I would like to know what is your criteria for when you would support impeachment, and what burden of proof do you need with the Mueller investigation or without it?
Great, and what's your first name?
Holly.
Holly, thanks Holly. And I want to address the specific question and then the larger question, which I think in some ways is foundational, which is about the responsibility of the legislative branch. When you think about how the founders wrote the Constitution, they put Congress first. That's Article 1. Yet we have a Congress today that is, I think, abdicated its most foundational responsibility to serve as a separate branch of government. It has become a rubber stamp, I think because of a lack, in some cases, of knowledge, but mostly a lack of courage. And Holly, you brought up for me what I think is the most tragic example of this. It certainly is for me as a Navy vet who lost brothers and sisters in both Iraq and Afghanistan. Congress's refusal to accept responsibility under the War Powers Clause for either calling this a war or not. After 17 years, you realize we are 17 years into the longest wars in America's history, and we still can't call it what it is. I guarantee you, I was on the ground in Afghanistan. I bet you were on the ground in Iraq. When you're there, you know what the heck it is. It's a war. Yet we have a Congress that refuses to even call it what it is and sees the entire responsibility for that, the moral burden, the leadership burden, to the executive, to the president. We have got to have a Congress that upholds its most fundamental duty to serve as a separate check and balance. And one of the duties of the Congress, of course, is the power of impeachment. And I will tell you, there isn't a ton of constitutional guidance on this because high crimes and misdemeanors is an incredibly vague description of the criteria for impeaching a president. And there's not a lot of historical advice either, because we've only got a couple, right? My hope, my sincere hope, is that we can continue to trust Mueller to do a thorough job and deliver those results to the American people. And I am going to reserve judgment until we have those results of the Mueller investigation. I think that's, yes, sir. Philip.
Two-part question. One, if you're running for Congress, do you have anything in place, we'll call it a board rather than a medal, that Russia interfered to that's not melon, that's record that. Well, I would like, do you have everything in place so what the Congress for the selection that can offset or that you're not being attacked or your campaign? Two, if you happen to win as a junior Congress, what would be the first three items that you would adhere to look at?
Thank you, Philip. Question about Russian interference in the election and my priorities. Should I be honored enough to make it to DC in January of 2019? I like the fact that you're not using the term meddling. because it is an act of information warfare. I was the class honor graduate of the Joint Aviation Electronic Warfare School. My background was in information warfare and electronic warfare, and a good number of my missions were flown against Russia. And let me tell you, Vladimir Putin is not our friend. And I certainly have areas of agreement and disagreement with this president, but to see him side just a week ago with a KGB agent over the consensus view of the entire American intelligence establishment, of which I was a part, that was a hard thing to watch. That was incredibly difficult to watch. To your question about our campaign having the tools in place to protect ourselves, I wish I could give you 100% confidence interval on that, but they are deploying tools that are cooked up in KGB labs. I mean, these are the cutting edge hacking tools of our time. And who knows? Often, I mean, in just the past couple of weeks, 5 more campaigns have been hacked. And they do a really good job of covering their tracks. But if you think this is just meddling, you're kidding yourself. This is way beyond meddling. Yes, ma'am?
Yes, my name is Sandra, and I agree with your bullet points about the things that you want to address. But I mean, I'd like to digress a little bit and, wonder what the on-the-ground strategy is going to be to bring neighborhoods and people and cultures that are polarized.
Yes.
Okay, because I mean, you can, the town halls are wonderful and all of that, but as a Black woman, I kind of have the idea that our vote is kind of taken for granted. In the aspect that, we know a bunch of Black people are going to vote Democrat. Okay, well, the thing is that we don't see anybody until it's time to get involved and to, start the campaign. Okay, that's the first, my first concern. The other concern is that, like I said, I see your bullet points, and they are lofty, first, to begin with, but I want to know how.
Okay.
When you say you're going to ensure every Ohioan has access to affordable health care, what's your plan?
So, and that goes to the second part of your question. You got it. And I want to, sorry, you had your hand up and I pounced on it, but I want to make sure I get Philip's question and I'll get yours as well, Sandra. As far as how, that's not a no. Just me. I hear you on the way Canton has been taken for granted, and the African American community in Canton. When you think about, and I know this is gonna land hard as well, but when you think about the Hillary campaign office in 2016 never being open, they painted 3 walls and locked the doors, and they didn't have a presence here. We cannot count on support if we're not going to show up and fight for it and make the case in person. Why we need your help, why we need your input, why we need your voice. And that is an indictment of the Democratic Party writ large, taken for granted an entire demographic, an entire segment of the vote, like it's always going to be there without listening, without fighting for it, without tending to. And we got to change that as a party. I hope I'm leading on this and leading into it and making the efforts that you want to see to learn and to get out into these communities. As far as how, that is the question. Because unless someone can come before you and get past the lofty goals and actually provide some confidence that they can get something done, vote for somebody else. You mentioned the first one, healthcare. There are things we can do right away if we had a little political courage and some common sense in Washington to get to that goal. I think step one is shoring up the exchanges. I am, and I've been on the record from the beginning as a candidate who supports fixing VAC. We have got to shore up the exchanges so that the marketplace has the confidence to invest and get some of those rates down. I would go beyond that and say we need to allow early Medicare buy-in for older Americans before they hit that threshold. And I would go a step further and support expansion of the FEHBP, the Federal Employee Healthcare Benefit Plan, to younger Americans. And then the thing that we need to do tomorrow, but again, it takes political courage, is demand that Medicare be allowed to negotiate after down drug prices. This is one of the biggest giveaways to big business that this country has ever agreed to. And I tell you why it happened. Whenever you have these head-scratching policies come out, you follow the money and you look at the amount of money that Big Pharma pumped into both sides to get this rip-off deal, and you get your answer. But we can fix it, especially if we start sending folks to DC who aren't taking a dime from any corporate PAC. The incumbent who holds this seat now, who I doubt has ever been to this community center, much less this community, gets 90% of his dollars from corporate PACs. We get zero. Everything, thank you. I think that's one of the foundational challenges is the money in politics. Yes, Senator.
Well, I want to ask if I'm processing as you're speaking, and I just want to know, do you have your ducks in a row? Do you have your allies? Do you have people in certain places that are influential enough where people will listen to these people and, and be able to get some sort of motion towards what it is that you want to accomplish? Because and I'm only going to speak for myself, I am sick of hearing the problem restated, ad nauseam. I'm just kind of tired of it.
I am too, and I see it every day in my community. And I spent this morning at a heroin roundtable with fire chiefs and police chiefs and EMS workers and folks on the front lines in the recovery system. I spent the afternoon at a alcohol, drug, and recovery center. We know the roots of a lot of these problems. We just need to bring, as you put it, stakeholders, allies together to begin to solve them. And if this gives you any peace of mind, I know it's only a small part of the puzzle, but going into November, we've got the endorsement of Marcia Fudge and Betty Sutton and Joyce Biddy and Tim Ryan and Sharon Brown and Marcy Kaptur. We're building allies around the country as well. There's an unprecedented number of military vets running this year. We're punching above our weight. We're working together. We meet, we call all the time, talking about how we're actually going to tackle some of these problems if we're honored enough to be elected. We're working on the plan. Yes, sir.
My name is Rick, and I want to thank you for 40 minutes for you to criticize the present congressman of this district by not showing up, but you criticize the Speaker of the House, Nancy, and you criticize Hillary. So you're criticizing established Democrats to separate yourself and say you're a new form of leadership. But there are some of us who are lifelong Democrats who have witnessed the power structure putting down these ambitious, powerful women, and I'm going to speak as a white male. I don't like the underlying current of we're going to put down leaders of my own party so I can get votes from people that may never even vote because they are brainwashed for this guy. They don't care. You can go and have dinner with them. And what a great guy, Kevin. Thank you for your service. Thank you for running Rubicon. I appreciate that. They don't care. They're going to vote for the R. So my suggestion to you is rather than losing us progressive Democrats, is kind of trying to get us to come along, because 40 minutes without criticizing our present congressman while you're going to two Democrats I don't like that.
What's your first name, sir?
Rich.
Rich.
I don't like it at all.
And yeah, I hope.
Don't change your stump speech.
Understood. Well, that, and this is not me being defensive, but the stump speech doesn't have really any of that criticism. I was answering your question, and I'd like to answer the
No, you
question
mentioned
correctly.
Nancy before you even answered the question. You brought up Nancy Pelosi, that you were not going to support her for leadership. That's why people who voted for Trump are going to vote for you, because you're not going to support Pelosi. They don't care. You're not going to win their vote because you're not for Nancy Pelosi. Whether she wins or not doesn't matter to me, but the woman did a great job when she was Speaker of the House. And she needs to be respected for what she did for our party and Hillary. So you cannot badmouth those women or Democrats to get Trump people's votes, because you're gonna lose mine.
I'm sensitive to that. I appreciate that. And if my desire for a new generation of leadership comes across as overly critical, and if it obviously does need to be said, without Pelosi, we would not have the ACA, on which my family and thousands,
Right.
tens of thousands of others depend. You are absolutely right about her pivotal role in getting us where we are in a lot of ways. But when I think about the Democratic Party for the next 20 and 30 and 40 years, that's what I'm fighting for. I'm fighting for a Democratic Party that is gonna, my kids are gonna look at and say, that is my party. That is a energetic and forward-looking and youthful party that
You
can.
don't do like putting down.
Saying that was not my initial question, but I'm sitting here in this place where I grew up as a child, playing through this one, this was all field, in this neighborhood, which at the time had a park down here, which was Jackson Park. It had 3 baseball fields in there where semi-pro baseball players, softball players played on those fields, where we had 3 or 4 black drugstores. We had businesses from this end of town to Cherry and to black-owned businesses. What happened? The government came through eminent domain and also urban renewal, this was not my initial question, but I'm sitting here with tears in my eyes and thinking about this community, what has been taken away from us, and I'm seeing all the other things that's being taken away from us as black people. This last campaign had dog whistles. Ohio is the determining factor, but Make America Great Again, that was Make America White Again. In this state that never voted in their lives because they read those dog whistles, they came out of the woodworks and the crevices of the earth to vote for this, to get it back white again. Nobody's opened their eyes. America is never going to be all white again. We're a melting pot of the world, and there is color. And back to this opiate crisis, like she said, as I was coming up, heroin was around, but the difference was those people that used heroin, they had jobs. We had jobs everywhere. You can quit a job today or get fired and walk out to factories, good paying jobs. Those people that were addicted, a lot of them were addicted to heroin back then. But if they got caught or whatever, like you said, they would be put in jail and was considered a crime. I'm looking at the opiate position right now in southern Ohio. Oh, and I'm going to say this. Back in the 60s, or late 60s, 70s, and 80s, there was 404,000 people that lived in Canton. It became a dying city. Over the course of years, now we have about 73,000 people. You know, there were 4 high schools. Everybody could work. There was training programs and different things beginning in high school. then still mental health people, they had facilities, programs that would help them. What has Ohio done? Put these people out on the street
Right.
and turn their heads to what's happening to them.
Said that sarcastically. People are choosing between food and medicine in the richest country on earth. And how did we get to that point? I go back to corruption in our politics. I'm sorry. I think it is a political system that is in the pocket of money interests. Philip, did you say greed? I think it's greed. I think it's greed.
It's been like that since time immemorial.
It has been that way a long time. But
It's always been like that.
Citizens United has made it
That's true.
immeasurably worse.
That's true.
Citizens United is the Supreme Court case that unleashed a flood of corporate money into our political system. And the justices decided, in their infinite wisdom, that for the purposes of spending money in a political campaign, a corporation is a person. The Supreme Court might say that, but the Harbaugh campaign has said we're not going to take a dime from corporate interests.